And Matthew is going to take a moment to introduce the video since Susan was his dear friend. And so I will hand it off to Matthew and he'll take it from there.
Greetings, everyone. Yeah, this is really a fun um, uh, tape. And so my friend Susan passed away, sadly, on December 20th, but she was 72, which was pretty old for her because she'd had a lot of health problems, which I'll describe in a minute. So, and I made this tape of her. I knew that time was short. I figured 2, 3 years maybe. But I made the tape in spring of maybe April or May of 2023, last year, almost a year ago now, knowing that time might be short, and I truly wanted to record the amazing adventures we had. And I know that I recorded most of them. There was one or two things I forgot to get on there, and I might actually, if I listen here, don't get tired of myself and her, I will maybe add them at the end, but I probably won't be available at the end of this tape because I already listened to it. And so I met Susan at Present Moment Herbs in South Minneapolis, which had been founded by Bob Gallagher. And this was so she was about 35, 36, and I'm a couple years younger, 32. So let's see. 80, late 80s, yeah, and somewhere in there. And she came in just to get henna for her and her daughter first one time. She was very memorable. And then she came in for help with Crohn's disease. So she'd had Crohn's disease. She felt the symptoms, she said, since age 10. And back in the 80s, there was less drugs than there is now. Um, they have some reasonable drugs, although, still it's not the same thing as cure or remission, which she was in remission for almost all of her life after we got a hold of her. But so uh she came in again, she needed help, and Bob helped her. So she had Crohn's disease, which is ulceration of the small intestine. They'd already removed a third of her small intestine, and and so and she took it took her, that was several years before, it took 6 months for her to heal. Um, and because she had such a high level of autoimmune disease that the wounds just would not heal, they just remained inflamed. Well, first she was unconscious. Golly, it may have taken closer to a year to heal, but she was unconscious, and they had her over medicated on morphine. This might be on the tape, I don't know, but at any rate, um, one of her former employers, who was a doctor, said, Susan was always sensitive to drugs. Maybe they've got her over medicated. But I couldn't recommend that because they get in a huff because they're the doctors in command here. So why don't you uh, um, suggest to them that she be brought down on drugs a little bit? And boom, she came right out of it very quickly, and just cold turkey right off the opioids. And this is just typical Susan. This may be on the tape, but she had this repetitive dream for the 6 months she was over medicated. Oh, and these munchkins kept on bothering her, which were evidently the nurses. But she had this dream where she was in this UFO circling the planet, and the UFO, they kept on saying how corrupt and miserable the human race was, and they wanted to destroy the human race. And she said, no, but look what they're doing over here that's really good. They're helping, I don't know, whatever, sick people, orphans, old people, third world, whatever. Every time that she said, no, look what they're doing over here, they would show her what they were really doing, and what they were really doing was like not good. And so finally, after 6 months, and they wanted her to press the button to blow up the planet or the human race. And finally, she agreed she would blow up the planet. And she pressed the button, and boom, she woke up. So rather a typical Susanism. So she came in and so she'd had a third of her intestine removed. Then it took months of she had to bandage herself. She had to go to work. She had to bandage every day just because it was still inflamed. And when I met her, she was still real red in the face. So Bob gave her calamus root, which boom, totally took care of it rather rapidly. And so she got to know us a little bit, but she was like, you guys, two old hippies, and she was trying to be a normal person, but she was failing. That was part of her problem, I think. And she said, "Yeah, you were like two big bad wolves standing up there in the behind the counter when I came in, and predatory gleam in our eyes." Yeah, that was kind of like Bob and I. And but so we really helped her, and look, I got to know her, and I invited her to the sweat lodges held at Prairie Island and Prairie Island, look, Dakota, Medwakaton, Dakota reservation that Amos Owen used to lead. And uh, he's dead now. He's been dead a long time. Uh, but it was quite really great. He had um, dreams about having a sweat lodge for the four races, four colors. That would be brown, red, white, uh, yellow, black, five, I guess, or would brown be red? I'm not sure. It's what was his dream? I can't remember. It must have been five. And there were people of all races there. And so she got involved in the sweat lodge and the peace pipe, and she fasted on Bear Butte. And I believe there's a story about the gnomes. There must be the gnomes on Bear Butte. And um, she 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 was support at Sundances until probably 3 years ago or so. Her husband died about 4 years ago, and then she had a stroke about 4 years ago, so shortly after that. Much more difficult to talk. So in this interview, I tell the story and she agrees. She says, "Yeah, yeah, that's how it happened." Uh, because she can't really say a lot about, she couldn't say a whole lot. She had kind of functional English enough to answer a phone call, maybe. And so uh, I interviewed her down to this is all our adventures. That's only part of the adventures. I keep on running across the places, and I always said she had 9 lives, and I saved her life 9 times at least. It just went on and on the number of times that I saved her life one way or another. And then finally in the fall, she met my other dear friend Peter. These are the two people that I'm most, kind of spiritual friends. We were going to have him on tonight, but he's too sick right now. And we're going to have him on 3 years in the ashram. And I'm just going to record that as I did with Susan independently. And his spiritual life, very, very interesting. Uh, and life in the ashram and various, he knows all these Sanskrit words that represent various different things. He was also in a Christian in the Holy Order of Man's in San Francisco for 6 months, a novitiate program. And then he went out into the world and um, stopped being a monk, I guess you'd say. Except maybe you never get it out of your system. But um, and the Holy Order of Man's no longer exists. The organization that he was in the ashram with, that does still exist. Okay, so let's see. So in the fall they met, and I never seen anything like it. Susan was in her yard. We drove up in my truck, and Susan saw Peter, and she just stood there, stock still, like for 10 seconds. It was disturbing. I'd never seen anybody do that. And finally, I got out of the truck and had to kind of, Susan, and she told Peter, um, yeah, I knew that you had all the same sorts of spiritual powers, kind of seership that I have. He has psychometry, which she doesn't have, but otherwise, like visionary, able to see all sorts of dimensions and other worlds and spiritual experiences of great depth, and she just was like, and they got to talk for 3 hours because I came and I had to teach um, uh, RSJ or A to Z or something for the Institute. And they got to talk, and that was a beautiful time. And so two of my best friends that had never been able to meet for 20 years did cross paths finally. And then about that time, we did a pipe ceremony and uh, peace pipe. So Susan and I have done peace pipe for since 35 years, which is a good way to communicate with God through the top of your head, with the spirits, with the deceased, with the spirits that want to help you, your animal spirits, guides, etc. Different people that come in have things to say. And yeah, that's maybe something I didn't explain so much. But so we had many a beautiful experience that way. And finally in 2012, this might be on the tape too, the spirit said, new path under the feet. Don't turn to the left, don't turn to the right, just go straight ahead. And now, with the whole world breaking up almost, I can see that both the left and the right are unsafe. You got to go down the middle. Actually, this was 2013, 6 months after the Mayan calendar changed. So then in October or so, we had a pipe ceremony, and John, her late husband, he showed up, and there he was up. I'd never seen this before. It was in the crown of glory, the crown of God, way up there, like up the soul star up there. He was up there, and he came down, and he was more talking to her. And I did think, oh, maybe this means her time has come, that he came back for her. And we talked to Peter that night, and he had the same impression, that could be the case. And then, indeed, I was so fortunate. She was such a dear close friend that I visited her on December 19th in the evening, and I could see it. I brought my peace pipe, but it was not a time to do a pipe ceremony. She had trouble. She was breathing heavy, and she said she felt really weak for 4 days. And I visited a little bit, and it was the only time I had to let myself in the door because she just was so passed out. I think her oxygen was low. I think she may have had clots in the lungs. I don't know. And heart attack clots, one in the heart or lungs. And then the next day she was dead. So it's beautiful that I did get to say goodbye to her, even in that state. Precious to me. So, okay, I think I will listen here, and I'll try to then record, throw in anything that I feel we left out. Well, here I am with my dear friend Susan.
Hello.
Who is a senior like myself now. And we will mention she had a stroke a couple of years ago, so she's not as, she doesn't have the dagger tongue that she used to have that could nail you to the wall.
Right.
Yes. So we thought we'd reminisce some. And we were just thinking of the day that you walked into Present Moment Herbs and first met me.
Right.
And Bob Gallagher. And we had a little herb store. It was his store down at 38th? 36th and Grand.
Which, right.
And you lived at 26th and not far from Grand, Pillsbury.
Right.
In the neighborhood. And she came on in. I can't remember what you needed, but yeah, you said we were sitting there like two big bad wolves.
Right.
What have we got here?
Right.
We could smell a crazy person.
Right.
Like yourself. Yeah, even though you were working for a regular company then, and trying to pass yourself off as a normal person. Well, she had a daughter. Your daughter was about 15 then or so.
I think so.
So she had to act kind of normal.
Right. And she was so nice.
Your daughter was.
Yeah.
I know your daughter was super nice.
Yeah.
You could hardly ask for a more perfect daughter.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And I was.
And you were crazy.
Right. Right.
So we soon learned that. Oh, well, you came in desperately. You were like, you had Crohn's disease, and you were ulcerating from your colon constantly from your.
Right.
And you'd already had an ileostomy, that is 30 your small intestine removed.
Yeah.
So the next thing was going to be a colostomy or whatever. And you were like hemorrhaging. And feverish. You were like
Right.
hot, the forehead and
Right.
everything, and red cheeks more than now. And she came in, and like Bob helped you, and he gave you calamus root.
Right.
Yep, which cured you for 10 years, I think, pretty much.
I think so. Right.
Yeah. Boom. And in
Right.
fact, your doctor even asked, what is this? I think he even, here, I put it down in the notes, but, I mean, what could you say? I mean,
It was really right.
It's a remedy banned by the FDA.
Right,
It shouldn't be, but yeah. So boom, that got you.
Right.
Then I remember the next time I remember seeing you came in to get some henna for you and your daughter to do your hair.
Right.
Dye your hair.
Right.
And I still remember the time then when you came in. I thought, you needed laxasis, the snake venom.
Yes.
She had a tongue like a snake's tongue.
Right.
Nail you to the wall. God, what's your problem? You need to get laid or something?
Right.
And so I gave her this book to read about it, laxasis, and there was this picture in it.
That's right.
Of a snake eating its tail. And what, had you dreamed of that or seen that?
Yes.
Yeah, I dreamed of that later on.
Right.
Yeah, and you jumped up and ran out of the store. You were so freaked out.
I was so mad. Oh, and I thought, what is wrong with you? You guys were just.
We were abnormal.
Right.
You were an outpost of the abnormal.
Right.
And even to Susan, who was herself the definition of the crazy out, she'd been trying to go undercover for quite a while.
Quite a long time. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We were in our mid-30s then. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah. I was a couple of years younger than you, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
So there we were. We stopped that disease graveyard dead. Boom, in its tracks for 10 years.
Right.
And you still haven't had to have a colostomy or anything. So
right.
Yeah, it's stopped, although it acted up a couple of years ago when there was a tense period. Yeah.
But then
it's
right.
We can't say she's cured. That's against the law, but we can say she's in remission for the rest of her life. Yeah.
Right.
So far, basically, and every once in a while, something can act up a little bit, So, then the next thing I remember is us going. So we wanted her to testify. We wanted to get some kind of not be illegal or something. So we went to the state health department hearings on. I don't know what we were trying to get.
Because you were going to say. No, you couldn't.
Oh, yeah. They were trying to pass a law that would make us all illegal or something.
Right.
And actually, we eventually did get a law that made us all legal.
Right. We did.
Yeah. That was 15 years later. That's the Health Freedom Coalition. You can look that up. National Health Freedom Coalition. You can look them up online. That's another story.
Yeah.
But Susan testified. Susan and I met at the Chinese restaurant. We both got our fortunes, and this has never happened to me any other time, or to you either.
Right.
We opened them up, and they both said, "Do not hesitate to shirk from the path which destiny has laid out for you."
Right.
So we went and testified.
Right, and we did it.
We did pretty good. Yeah. We did impress them. Yeah. So. And that reminds me too of all the great evenings we spent at what's its name with the poo platter, the Chinese that dragon, is that
right? That's it.
Yeah, these are all deep in the bowels of the inner city.
It's still.
It looked like it was still there. Yeah,
we should go and.
I know.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Golly. So we both lived in the inner city then, and
right.
Yeah, and Susan lived at 28th and Pillsbury, which like one time she didn't get stopped by a cop. There was like a long traffic delay, and no, you did get stopped. He looked at your license plate and he said, "You live your license, your driver's license," and he said, "You live here?"
And yes. And I was okay.
28th. And well, he said, he was kind of impressed. He was a black cop. He was like, well, you live there, like
Right.
So, like one time, I dropped Susan off late at night, and these two black teenagers were walking along, and and as Susan got out of the car, they actually ran.
Right.
She was pretty scary looking.
We were. Why not?
Well, you were the main scary looking one,
Right.
So,
Well,
yeah.
no, well, you were.
I was still in the car, so it was you.
Oh.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I was like, whoa, yeah, she's dangerous already. Yeah. Yeah. We had many fun times at that house. Remember that one time? I mean, some of these are so unbelievable. I started talking about Kent, and I was saying something that wasn't really derogatory, but he's just crazier than we are almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm talking about him and looking at the window, and then boom, there's his face at the window. He's looking right in at me at that moment. Oh, yeah.
Right.
He said, oh, because she only lived about 8 blocks from the herb store. So he said, oh, yeah, they told me you were at Susan's house. So I came on over. Yeah, I know.
I couldn't believe it.
After that, I felt like, oh my God. Yeah, Kent was a lot of fun. I hope he's still with us and on this side of the plane.
Really? Yeah.
He moved to New York State. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, that would be fun doing some stories about him too. But so you can testify that he was actually alive. Yeah. Well, like one time, so he had bright red, like sweater. Oh. And yeah, grab my thing there, and yeah, that bag. So it was brighter. I think his pants were about this color.
Right.
And his sweater was even a little more intense.
Right.
And he told me, he said, when you lock up, come get me. I'm in the basement meditating at the herb store. But I forgot. So I locked him in there, and he was a night watchman, so he kind of knew what to do. So he unlocked the door, set off the alarm, and sat there in the chair facing the door. So the police came in, and they called Chris, who locked up. And Chris came in. He said, yeah, Kent was sitting there looking like a character from Batman or something.
Right.
Dressed all in red.
He was so, yeah.
Yeah. He's the one too. The cat, we had a cat there, which they made us get rid of because we were a grocery store, technically, the herb store. And, but one morning we came back and it was limping and one paw was injured. And I asked Kent, what's the problem? Do you got any idea what's going on with the foot? He looked at us. Oh, there's a piece of blue glass in there. And sure enough, and so we put plantain on to draw it out. And the next morning, there was a piece of blue glass sticking out of the foot.
Oh, my God.
I know, that was him. Yeah.
He was really, but he was.
He could tune into all sorts of dimensions. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So.
But he was really.
He was sensitive and delicate.
Right. Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
he was.
Good guy. Let's see. So we were hanging at the herb store, and then we got involved. We started going to the Sweat Lodge, the ceremonies down there at Prairie Island.
Right.
Medwakaton, Dakota Reservation, which is just a little square mile of land. They left them down on the island there. And in the Mississippi, next to the nuclear power plant, of course.
Right. Of course. Of course.
And it was Victor, I think, that was the connection through Victor. We heard about it, and I went down, and then I grabbed you, and
we went.
Yeah, you were like the right kind of person for that. And you've been involved. We've both been involved in Native American religion since then. But Susan, much more than me. She's been to many a Sundance and ceremonies and up on Bear Butte and all sorts of things. So we started going down there, and I still remember, this is so sweet. So Amos, the leader was Amos Owen.
Right.
And then his wife, Ione, who grew up in that house. I mean, it was like 1890 or 1900. And they lived through, she remembered the flu epidemic of 1918. She and I liked herbs, and so we started talking. So,
right.
But when I got there first, she'd say, I married him for better or worse.
Oh, God.
And you could tell she thought this was worse.
Worse. Yes.
Having 25 mostly white people in her kitchen.
Right.
At 2 a.m. on Friday night.
Right.
On Saturday morning, rather.
Yes.
Yeah, you could tell it would be, and she kept a good house too. So, and it was a potluck, but it was hard on her. So, but she and I started talking about herbs, and she got engaged. And then an interesting thing happened. The women in the group, they realized that that they should be with her, help her, and that kind of led to they took care of her, and so she was, it wasn't such a burden on her.
Right.
So, yeah. And then years later, when she was dying, and she was just a little shriveled up and just hanging down. I don't think she was conscious, but she was sitting up. She might have been. She might have been aware I was there, but they invited me to come down and say hello and goodbye. And, she was, what's it called? Anglican. So she wasn't really into, I think her husband, that was paganism to her. And because they'd really been helped by the Episcopalian priest really a lot. That famous, I think he was why they had a res there. I can't remember his name.
Right. I can't remember.
Bishop Whipple.
Oh.
Yeah. Bishop Whipple pleaded with the governor to release one Indian. He said, if I adopt him and he becomes a Christian, will you let one young man free from the 32 that they had consigned to death? And so they did. Maybe it was 33, 32. They hung 31, 30. So maybe it was,
so then there was 31.
Yeah. And so
that was terrible.
Yeah. Amos would go down there. He'd cry. He would mourn for them and help them pass on. They were his people, the Midwakaton, Dakota. So we went there. We went to those ceremonies, and they were great. And and we had our dear friend in the store to come into the store often enough, Arlo Omaha.
Oh, yeah.
Who was more my friend in connection here. You connected down there, more I connected with.
Right.
Arlo was a contrary. Like, you couldn't mention his name anywhere between the Black Hills and St. Paul without people laughing.
I know, but you know what?
He was wise. He really knew his stuff.
Yeah. Right.
And he was part of a generation. So they had all met when the federal Indian Religious Rights Act was passed in 1978 or 9. Like, it was illegal to have Indian ceremonies up till then, and some dances and all
was
that.
Right after.
Yeah, and
his
and he participated.
Sister had to quit too.
Whose sister had to quit? It wouldn't have been Arlo's.
Barb.
Oh, his wife. Yeah. Those Ojibwe probably could get away with more than the Lakota, but when they passed that law, so then they came out of hiding, and they all met with the chief Sundancer, big honcho. He may still be alive. Leonard Crow Dog.
Right.
And Leonard Crow Dog was the leader of the Renaissance, and very important to all of them. He had been hidden and raised independently. The white people didn't know he existed. Right. So that they could raise him and give him a traditional raising, and he could keep all the ancient tradition. So they met. As I understand it, I believe actually at the University of Minnesota they had some room there. Must have been some activist Indians. Maybe I have it wrong, but he came there, and Arlo was there. Arlo wasn't a student, but they met and they started. And Arlo led some sun dances. Like,
nice.
I participated too, and he was a contrary. So one time I went down to the Pipestone National Monument. They were having a ceremony there, and the Sundance, and And where was Arlo? Arlo was supposed to lead it. It was it was a day, and for the whole day went by, and he didn't show up. And they called his daughter, and his daughter said, "The only thing I know about my father for sure is that he's my father."
And that's it. And that's it.
And then finally he arrived, and he said, I heard him say, "Oh, they set up the colors in the Lakota Contrary way."
Right.
Yeah, my cousin set them up in the right way. So he was a character, man.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, he could read your mind too.
And he would always.
Oh, he was really liked you.
Yeah, he would be. Oh, he would really be nice to me.
Yeah. So Susan got more involved with the people down at Prairie Island, and I was always a lazy bum. I didn't go up on the mountain. I didn't go fasting or questing, and I hung out with Arlo to learn stuff. So I should have hung out more, actually. And because he and I, when we met, it was like do I know you? Like, were you in the Army? He said.
Right.
He was in the Army for 6 months. And then he started to hear voices, and they gave him a psychiatric discharge.
Really?
50% psychosis, they called it. And
oh God.
And so he lived off the government for all those years, from age 19 on.
Right.
And then when he was about 45 or so, he was doing drugs a whole lot, living on the street. Oh. And he got arrested, and they sent him to St. Peter for evaluation.
Right.
And he called me from there. He was he was really worried they were going to lock him up.
Right.
He called me, and then they let him go after a month.
Right.
And then he came into Present Moment, the herb store, with his check, and it said 100% psychosis.
Right. He was. Oh God.
Yeah, you could really. Yeah, he was
really.
100%.
Right.
And so, and I remember Bob said, "Well, that's some chisel you got there, Arlo."
Right.
Chisel on the big rock. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you hung with the people down there for a while, and then later you connected with Galen Drapo.
Yes.
And Big Galen, because there's little Galen is still around. Big Galen's passed on.
Right.
And Big Galen, I have to kind of narrate because Susan had a stroke. But she's told me all these things.
Right.
So, yeah. So we can tell how you dreamed of going to the Galactic Federation Center.
Right. Because
What's that like there? Big crowd of people.
It was a big, but it was really.
They're not all humans, are they?
Right. They weren't.
Yeah. Right.
So it was really mostly him and.
Yeah. He was there. Galen. Big
Galen. Right.
Yeah.
And he would.
And he spoke?
Yes. And he really.
He spoke well, huh?
Right. Yeah. He would.
Yeah. So then the next time, and Galen kind of, who's this person, but the next time they met, Susan said, I saw you at the Galactic Federation Center. Right. That was a good speech you gave.
And it was. And you know what? He was okay. He was really, I think he would.
The people really listened.
Right.
He had influence there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I remember my friend Sandra Boyd, she would talk. She'd talk about the Galactic Federation Center meetings there, on and on. And one time, I heard on the Artie Bell show, there was this guy named Red Elk, not my friend Red Elk. And he said he would go there. And he said all these other races were blaming the Earth for holding up the evolution of the whole galaxy.
Right.
and he said, I stood up and I said, yeah, well, that's because you guys mixed your genetics with us and you messed us all up.
Right.
And it's your fault too. Right. And he said, and let me tell you, those Earthlings were clapping.
Right.
So I told that Sandra, who's a Cherokee medicine woman. Yeah.
So we put it on a hold or something?
Just a second. Yeah. I told that to Sandra and she said, oh, he's just a government plant.
Oh, God. Really?
Yep. Right. Okay. We're taking a break. We almost need a cushion under you to get you. So Susan weighs, when she was healthy, all of 74 pounds.
Right.
What are you at right now?
60.
Oh my God, 60. Wow.
Right.
Okay. Huh. Well, she's stabilized. She hasn't been below 60.
Right.
Okay. And the secret to her weight loss is that she smokes. No.
Which, of course, yes. Okay.
Well, let's see. So back in the Amos days, another thing that happened, I remember, it was the gnomes. So,
oh, that's right. Yeah.
So back at the farm there, I had a dream one night. I've told this story a number of times, that the gnomes were having a funeral in my garden, and
right.
The chief gnome was dressed up like a little Puritan with a little collar and stuff, and all black with a little hat, and he was reading out of this great big book. And I tried to look at it, and he whoops, no, took it away. And I woke up, and that day my apprentice Lise was apprenticing with me, about 1992, 3, somewhere in there.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And she came in a couple hours after she started working, looking all haunted, and she said, hey, I feel like there's like something buried in the garden here. There's a dead thing buried in the garden. I said, oh, that's just the gnomes.
Right.
They had a funeral in the garden last night.
I know.
And you probably felt them when you were out there. They lived down by that little fence by the road. Yeah. And I don't know, they liked it there. And so I didn't send them to Susan. They went on their own. They didn't ask permission. They just, one day she was lying in bed.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was these little impressions made on the bed, and they jumped up on her bed and jumped into her side.
Right.
And they held a patch on her because the Crohn's disease was so bad. You needed a patch.
Yes.
You needed supernatural healing. Herbs weren't enough.
Right.
So.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. They were like bouncing on the bed. And they left this, you could tell. And I was totally,
She still was not quite as out there as she would eventually become. Still holding on to a shred of reality.
Right.
So they stayed with her for like a year and a half and kept that patch on there.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And
golly.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Well, you and him.
Yeah.
Or whatever they were. They were a little bit of both, I think.
They were a little bit of my energy and a little bit of their energy. They're still there at that farm.
Yeah. And they're still around you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I invited them to go to my land up in Upper Michigan. I thought they'd like it there.
Right. They are.
Yeah.
Don't you feel it?
Yeah, but they really like that Sunnyfield Herb Farm.
Yes.
On Sunnyfield Road. And of course, the Mosses were there before me. They were kind of crazy too. So
right. It was mostly, yes.
And Aunt Esther and Sam, of course.
Right. They were totally, oh God.
I could tell stories about them too. Yeah.
Right. Oh, they were, oh, right.
I'll tell stories sometime. But so they were with Susan for a year and a half or so. And during that time, she went with Amos and people from Prairie Island out to the Bear Butte to fast and
oh yeah.
Yeah. And Amos and Susan were the last to get into the sweat lodge, and they were just getting ready to get in. And Amos said, "Hey, there's little people on the mountain."
Right.
I've never seen that before. And Susan said, "They don't have anything to do with me. It's nothing to do with me."
Right.
She was so afraid she was doing something wrong.
And it was. Right.
Of course it was from you.
Right. Only. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then towards the end of when I stopped going, remember we were driving down there, you were driving, and we saw the darkness come out between the stars.
Right.
Yeah. from the tree on the one side across the sky
Right.
over to the other side, and you were just completely discombobulated so much you had to like stop the car, just
Right.
slow down and
Right.
stop.
And just look at it.
Yeah, or watch it. I mean, it disappeared pretty quick, but it was like, whoa. And I knew right away that he who must not be named had told me that the witches are those who live in the dark places between the stars, which is exactly, it was like a black fluid that would go
Right,
total darkness
right.
between the stars. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was upsetting, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was.
Well, you didn't know what it was probably either. You
No.
had been told
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if it didn't feel good to you or if it, what you felt. I knew what it was. So it was like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
But
but I
was
didn't.
like, whoa.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And I think.
And we've been really haunted because because we've been there.
I think things started to fall apart some after that down at Amos's.
Right there. Right.
Yeah. Or at least for us, I left and then you had to leave a while later. So, but those are many good days. And then you spent time with Galen, Big Galen, and later Little Galen. And one other thing about the gnomes, so many years passed, maybe 20, 25 years, and my friend Sandra Boyd, she had all sorts of heart problems and things and accidents and whatnot. And she's a big Cherokee woman, boom, like 6'3".
Right.
So, and she was having serious heart problems. I was out in California. I said, well, wait a second. The gnomes, they help Susan. Maybe they'd help her.
Right.
So I called them out to California, and then I called them, and then I sent them to her, and she dreamed about them. She said all night long they were working on her heart, and then they left in the day. And then the next time this is so crazy. The next time she got an MRI of her heart. There was a heart, and there was like a big, like, how you make a pie crust you press it together.
Right.
There was like a big, like, scar where they, like, these little fingers had pressed this on her heart. And the doctor just shook his head. He said, I don't know. I don't want to know about this.
Right. Oh my God.
Yeah. Right. So, but they haven't acted again, but I imagine one could send them out all the time. Well, maybe we'll see if they want to help you now with this stuff going on. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Good.
That would really be nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, we'll give it a try. We'll put out some tobacco for them. Yeah. And ask them to come help you. Yeah. I think they would do it again. So, boy, saved by the seat of your pants.
Oh my God! Right. Oh, that would be. Oh, well.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Or I have to see or whatever. I just.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, some things there.
Yeah, I should cut off notifications. I think. How do I do that? Do not notify me until tomorrow morning. Boom. I can't shut this off permanently. I don't really want notifications. Okay. So another thing that happened during that time was that you had your initiation, your dream of your medicine animal, the alligator.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I can tell the story. You can
go ahead.
Chime in. Yeah. So Susan's having a dream,
right?
And she's in the center of the galaxy, I think. Again, well, they're having a peace conference at the center of the galaxy, and there's all sorts of races and different.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, go on.
It looks like Star Wars or something, with all these like alien things, and she's manning the human booth with a couple other humans.
Right.
And as she said, when she first told me, she said, and let me tell you, we humans are not very interesting.
No, we weren't. Right. We weren't actually. Yeah. Golly. Right. Okay. Go on.
And then in the distance there's this huge line of alligators or crocodiles. Which did it seem to you? With the king of the crocodiles. They're walking on 2 feet.
Right.
Marching behind the king of the crocodiles.
Right.
And he marches right up to the human booth.
And said. And
you said, have you ever felt the calm of terror?
Right.
And I said, oh, no, actually.
Right.
And what did he say? I can't remember.
What did he say?
Well, or you were the one who said, get the gun.
Get the gun. Get the gun. Right.
Yeah, you said to the other humans. And immediately you were strung up on these telephone poles or these tall poles, and everybody was staring at you like, what?
Right.
And you were like, oh no, this is a peace conference. I blew it. Right. So off he marched with his mile-long
sorry.
line of alligators, and they set up crocodiles, they set up their court. And there were alligator, elders or alligator people all around.
Yeah.
In the middle was the court, and king of the alligators was there. Yeah.
Oh, it was really. You really felt it. Right.
I felt it. What did it feel like? Pretty.
You felt like you were gonna. Well, I don't know. You're not going to make it after so like, all right, go on.
So she felt like she had to make a present for the king of the alligators because she'd blown it. So she got a great big ruby necklace because she thought that was the best.
Right.
And she brought that. And then in the center in this court then was this snake woman with a snake tail sticking out from under her dress. And she kept on saying, kill her.
Right.
Kill her. And you gave that to the king of the alligators, and he wasn't very impressed. But he did say, if you pull a gun, you'd better use it.
Right.
And then the snake lady said, the snake woman said, kill the bitch.
Right. Oh, right.
And Susan woke up.
Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah, and you were going out with that Doug then, his name was, and you said the last time you told me the story, you said, and just when you think this stuff's all a crock of shit, it ruins your sex life.
Right. Oh, God.
Because he dreamed, like the next week, he dreamed that he saw her coming up out of the lake, and she was half woman and half alligator.
Right.
And that was the end of their relationship.
Right. Oh, God, that was terrible. Right. Boy, that was really
yeah, he was a good guy. He was from down at Amos's Circle. Yeah. So so those were the days. It seemed like everything crazy happened in those days.
Right down. Yeah, I think so.
It was like normal and Bob always liked insane people. So they would come, like people that were on welfare or something. They'd always come to the store. And we had all sorts of really interesting people. I remember there was Steve. He was on psychiatric drugs, and they've had him on lithium.
Oh, really?
He said, and he wanted Edgar Casey lithium water. We ordered it, and he would take that. Yeah, so he got his esoteric.
Really?
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, that's the equivalent. That,
oh my God!
From Lithia Springs, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina. Somewhere down there. Yeah. So, and then some of the dreams you had so I'd already had that dream of my wolf being a couple of years before I met you. And met the Lord of the Underworld, and his face was just darkness. He pointed and he said, I want you to meet one of my captains.
Right.
And I looked, and there was a big bad wolf.
Like that,
yeah,
right?
Under the inner city streetlight, like, what do we got here? Like, and then the Lord of the Underworld said, and now we are going to make a psychic link between you and the wolf being. And I said, oh, wait a second.
Wait.
Right. I've studied occultism and shamanism, but I don't want to link with some familiar animal in the underworld.
Right.
Oops, too late.
Too late. Right.
And then I felt a band around my head. And then I know it was a snake. And then it was locked over my forehead with a jaw like this. And it opened up, boom, and it flopped out the back of my head. I woke up like, oh my God, there's a snake in my bed. And I realized pretty quick, oh, that was a dream. And I knew I was released from some ancient curse on the human race.
Right.
Of course, was the Garden of Eden. So there was that snake biting the tail, which later you saw too.
Right.
So when you dream of your medicine animal, like we both did, and it really has to happen in dream time or hallucinations or whatever, then you're like kind of, you really have your feet in the other world. You truly have a connection to the spirit world that's like indomitable after that. It's hard to explain. But the first time you have a lucid dream, you know that it's another world, now you know that you're accepted there, that you have a place there. So the same week that happened, that was when I met a certain medicine man up north. And
that's right.
Yeah. And I remember.
I remember them. Right.
Yeah. And, I also remember that. So I had a dream too that I was in the underworld, and it was kind of like a parking garage with a low ceiling. And so the automaton world, you and I both seen that. The automatons walking around and they hit the wall and bounce off and go off.
Right.
Boom. Boom.
Right.
Boom. All over. And I grabbed one of them and I yanked on him. I knew him and tried to wake him up, but he was a really good person, spiritual, but no, just was so.
Sometimes right now, we would think about it.
It seems like people are that way nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah. Zombies. Yeah, that's the natural state of the human race.
We lost about a lot of it, and then all of a sudden it came back. You're right.
We lost what?
We just didn't.
Oh, you mean we couldn't connect in our pipe ceremonies and stuff? It
didn't show up in most of our dealings.
Our pipe ceremonies.
Yeah, or even, around. But then we saw it.
Was that the time that we had the ceremony when animals came? That kind of restored. That was like a year and a half ago. That kind of restored the connection to the other world again. I don't know. But you see spirits. You see the spirits of people, and they're more zombie-like or less zombie-like, or
less.
Oh
no! It would be.
Some of them are more zombie-like, and some.
Yes.
Right now, due to the separation of souls going on right now. Yeah.
I forgot that it was.
Yeah. So that's right.
Oh, wow.
I know. You see that the zombies, that's the normal state of the human race. You and I were that way until we had those dreams. They wake you up from that world. And yeah, you had that. You were stuck in the world of the zombies, and someone came and rescued you and took you out of there.
Oh, yeah. Remember that?
Well, you've told me, yeah. It was like a helicopter came, and the guy came down, boom.
Right.
And took you out of there. You were afraid, of course, that you were going to stay there forever.
Right.
Nope, you just earned your spurs, and you're going to leave that realm. Yeah, I hate to be so pessimistic about the human race, but 99% of people are zombies, and
oh, that's right. That's so bad.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to see that. Yeah. So, okay. Well, so we both had that experience, and I don't know if it was before or after that you had that experience when you were camping, where you knew you had to dedicate your life to the path. and you knew you couldn't get away. And remember, you met the old man, the old spirit.
Right.
He said something like, "Oh, you're whining and complaining. You know what?"
Right. I remember that.
Yeah. You were out there. Yeah, you were on a camping trip, and
Right.
she understood for the first time she was going to have to dedicate her life to this crazy other path.
Right. Boy, I thought it was it wasn't even.
Well, we had plenty of adventures, but let's go down to just the October of 2021. And we had a pipe ceremony. That was the most, there was 2012, 2013, July, where we had a pipe ceremony, and the ancestors said, "New path under your feet, new path. Don't look to the right and don't look to the left, just go forward."
Right.
And we were like, "What? Well, we never had that ever."
Right.
They never told us this new path. But that's when I felt like these changes, the quickening for the new, we're coming on quicker and quicker to the new world in the future. And 2016, 17, right in there, I had 17. I had yet another dream. I'll go into that some other time. Sandra actually had that dream too. Or she had a vision. Being an Indian, she just saw it. And the little animals were looking. She was looking at them. They were looking. They were all, the stars were falling out of the sky. She saw it as an actual thing. Yeah, that was when the stars fell out of the sky, and I knew the world was ending. I knew a new beginning. But then when COVID hit, I knew that was the real McCoy. But so that was 2020. 2021, we had that ceremony, and all the animals came. All of them. They surrounded us like 75 feet deep in all directions horizontally.
Right.
And they said they were going to protect us.
Right.
And you could feel they felt sorry for the human race. We were like, well, what's the problem for the human race? And they felt sorry for us, but they were going to protect us, and they would guide us and teach us too. And then Creator came. I felt the top of the head open to Creator, and I've been in sweat lodges and ceremonies where I felt that Creator up there, and often, a lot of the time you feel that. It could be a little dim, but it's just up there. But this is the only time Creator descended, and Creator, it wasn't words. It was like he put an actual divine interpolation into the earth, just because without it, the earth would not survive.
Right.
So that's how bad off we put things, we humans. So that ceremony was something else. And then it was about 2-3 weeks later, you were standing out in your pasture, and you saw that deer.
Right.
With the antlers, a buck standing there, just 10 feet from her. She stared at it, and it stared at her. And you knew it was not a normal deer.
Right.
It was not just not a normal deer. It's not a sick deer. It was like a supernatural being.
Right.
And then my friend Tracy and I, we came over and we were visiting, and Susan, I could hardly talk.
Yeah.
She was so messed up. And we gathered there was a deer in her pasture, and she stood there for like 10 minutes, and finally, "I'm okay, you're okay," and walked away. So it was getting dark. We went back. We got in my truck, and we drove about 2 miles down the road. We're driving. It looked like along the side on the verge on the gravel.
Right.
There was this, it looked like a statue of a deer, like with the head turned back with the antlers towards us, big antlers. It looked like it was made out of corn stalks. It was November when the corn stalks are out. And we both thought, wow, is it like a sculpture made by a farmer along the road?
Like what's that?
Yeah.
Right.
So I stopped, and we turned around and drove back. And this time, the truck was on that side of the road next to the verge. And there was a huge buck, huge, big, fat buck, like standing there like 5 feet from Tracy, because she was on, about 2 feet, the butt of the deer from my front light on that side, and looked at me, and I looked at her, and it just stood there and looked. And we were like, and it had like little teeny antlers, which may mean it's a real elder. I don't know. Might have been, or it just was, it didn't look exactly like a normal deer. And, but, and then we just looked at it for like a minute, and then we drove on and turned around, and it was gone. So, holy cow.
Right.
Yeah, so whatever's going on in the world since that time, man, I mean, we're just in a new dimension, folks, like as far as we're concerned.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's a good place to stop it for now. If we can recollect some other stories, we may tell them another time. But yeah, I'll throw in that vision I had in 2017. So something was bothering me all day, like no, for 2 weeks, like it's scratching at me. And in the dream, it was with me again. And I was in this old Victorian mansion that was separate rooms for like college students or whatever. It was like I was in college again, but they were all occultists, and one of them was attacking me. And I wrestled with the door to close the door, get the latch, and then finally I turned the latch and click. Then the vibe totally stopped, and I turned. And I looked out the window, and I saw the stars falling from the sky, and immediately I knew the Earth was ending. And then, boom! I shot up through the top of my head, boom, to the soul star, the spirit star, which is where the spirit tells your soul what to do, and you interact and you build that. Yeah, it's on the fiber that goes up to the crater, way off you so far you can't even imagine it. And there was my little group of souls there, and we were all working for the good of humanity, but we weren't in agreement because some of us are even working against each other because we didn't know each other. And then all of a sudden, click, this like someone clicked a dial, like the Guardians of the Planet or something. Click, we were all in total harmony.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked down, and there was just total chaos, an ocean of chaos. Yeah, and then later a friend of mine said, "Oh, those stars falling out of the sky, that was the soul stars of people who didn't do their spiritual work, that they just didn't do it. They didn't develop that. They didn't do anything. So, boom, it's falling out of, they're being cut out of those heavens, you know." And I knew that was right then, but about a month ago, I knew it again. It was right. I was like, oh, wait, yeah, because then the next thing happened to me is I went to my soul star, and she understood right away. So, and then we had our creator and the animals dream.
Oh, yes.
Or pipe ceremony. And then we had our supernatural deer experience. And so we're just living supernatural time zone.
Right.
Okay, folks, thank you.
How was it watching again? I bet it was really delightful.
It was. I'm glad we got those. I mean, this was kind of the way work at present moment was for 10, 20 years like that. It was just crazy stuff, one week after another. And it was wonderful. It was an enchanted age, I would say. And it's harder now. There just is more muck in the world. And I don't know that it's any less magical, but I don't have as many experiences like that. And you know, she's not around, and Peter, I'm visiting now. Peter, similar crazy experiences too. But I would say that they might fit the monastic description a little bit better. But he had just amazing voices and visions and all sorts of things himself. So unfortunately, yeah, he suffered from ill health himself. Susan had that Crohn's disease, but she survived, and I guess the gnomes did not help. And then finally, she passed on in December. And but you can see what an amazing person she was, and her experiences. And I thought there's one more story I'm going to tell, and that is the story of Susan and the poison mushroom. Which I have told in several of my books. But so we went out and we gathered a bunch of puffballs, which are really, you can't really mistake them for anything else. And they're quite edible, although they're really tiresome after one big puffball. It's kind of bland, but mushrooms are good for you. And she got herself a mushroom book that was used. It was down in the basement. And the very first page is like, don't eat this mushroom, angel of death, avenging angel. And the Amanita vernex or Amanita, various Amanitas, the toadstool with a little blip, and then and it doesn't have it's not the red with the white or the orange with the white. That's Amanita muscaria. This one's the deadly one. And she said, and it was even on the news. Like she didn't watch the news, neither did I much, but don't eat this mushroom and don't let your dog or your children eat this mushroom. It just happened to be out. It was fall that year, August, and she and but lo and behold, she ate a mushroom. So it was a nice summer evening, long summer evening, and I'd been visiting a friend. I came home, and it was a little before 8, or it was a little before 8:30. So present moment was just about to close, and then it did close. But I thought, well, I'll listen to my um, phone messages, and there was Susan, help! I ate a poison mushroom. And I said, and I called her back. I said, okay, I will be there. Don't go to the hospital or anything, because I knew that they didn't have the antidote for Amanita vernix, Amanita phalloides, that the avenging angel of death. And so a friend of hers arrived from the neighborhood, actually a guy she was having an affair with. Yeah, this is before John, her husband. And so I got there, and she had puked her brains out. She was lying on the floor, and she'd already vomited a whole lot, dry heaves, and I gave her that, and I gave her some of. So we had some. I had milk thistle seeds. I had like a third of a. Really, it was a sixth. Oh well, maybe a third of an ounce of 2 3 year old milk thistle seed. I didn't even have the tincture with me, so she started kind of trying to eat them, chew them. The active ingredient is in the integument in the skin of the seed, so it will dissolve in your mouth. You start getting that, but it's not very concentrated. It was a little bit old, and so so she was eating it, and finally said, "Well, we should take you to the hospital." So we put her on the back seat of my car, and as we were arranging it, I saw there was a printout. There was a one single sheet folded over that I got at the present moment for 50 cents or $1 in those days. That was on milk thistle as an antidote to avenging angel of death mushroom. I said, oh, we can turn that in with her. So we start off on the way to the hospital from her house on Pillsbury to Abbott Northwestern, which is in the bowels of the inner city, which is part of the funny story that happens there. So we're just leaving, and she says, I can see the other side. And then we're a couple blocks, we're halfway to the hospital. And she says, they're coming to take me. And then a couple more blocks, and we're just driving into the parking lot of the hospital. And she says, it's the right herb. So Paul carried her in, and I filled out the stuff, and I put that on the clipboard. There was no computers it was like 1989 or something. And I know the exact day from the subsequent what happened. But so it was a clipboard, and I put that sheet of paper in there with the stuff on it. And then Paul and I went, and they took her, and we went to sit in the inner city, in the bowels of the inner city, in the hospital there in the waiting room. And there was a TV on, and it was the day that Pee Wee Herman got busted for exposure in a movie theater, in a adult movie theater. So we were like all watching, like, what? Like everybody, I mean, like, well, I got problems. My loved one's in the hospital here, but well, that's pretty weird. We were watching it. It was like big news. And younger people won't remember that. He died a few years ago. And poor guy. So then finally, after 45 minutes, a nurse came bright. She was so nice. It's like I fell in love, like, wow. And she said, your friend's going to be okay. Well, we've taken her up to the ICU to keep her overnight. We're going to watch her, but she's stabilized. So Susan said they brought her in, and they put heart monitors on her, and the heart was just going the heartbeat all over the place, and her potassium level was dropping, and it looked really bad. And the nurse was there, and the doctor, and the technician, I think, that ran the heart monitor, and they were looking at her, and then all of a sudden, boom, boom, the heart went normal, and the nurse and they looked at each other and they looked at the dial. They filled all the dials. They looked at her. And the nurse grabbed the seat off her clothes and said, "So what's this?" And she said, "I know. It's the antidote." It was like some Harry Potter thing. And they just were quiet and they took her up there. So she didn't want to go to the ICU unit, partly because she had already spent the 6 months in that particular ICU unit in a coma, over medicated with opioids, as I said, but also because Paul's wife worked as a nurse in the ICU there. And we never actually, well, she probably did find out from Paul later on, but I never heard whether she was there that night, but it was a little sticky. So, and they wanted to put her in the exact same room she'd been in before, and she insisted, "No, I will not go in that room." So they put her in another room, and then the nurse said, "You can go upstairs and visit her now." So Paul and I went up there, and we're sitting in chairs, and she's sitting there, and they said, "I don't want to be here. I want to go home. They won't let me smoke." They said, "No, no, Susan, you got to stay here." No, no. And finally, and the doctor came in, and he's all flustered, and he was looking at the it was on that door of the, he grabbed it off the door of the pre-computer. Well, not entirely, it was close to it, but he grabbed the clipboard off the door and he was fiddling, looking through it. He says, well, well, what's going on here?" And she said, "I ate a poison mushroom." And he was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, yeah, where'd you get it? Lund's, like Byerly's, like Safeway, like Cub Foods, like." So Lund's was a supermarket then. "So where'd you get it? Lund's?" And she said, "No, I found it in my yard." And he didn't say anything, but I could see the writing. It was like the words in his brain were above his head, and he said, "Oh my God, this one's crazy." And then he kept on looking through there, and then he said, "This says you have Crohn's. You have you could have a severe episode of Crohn's, and how do you know it's not Crohn's?" And she said, "I know the difference. This is not." He seemed to believe that. No words above the head. And then he said, "So who's your regular doctor?" And she said, I saw Dr. Smith at Park Nicollet a year ago." What? You're supposed to tune in. You're supposed to check in once a month. You could die. You could have a split a seam. You could have hemorrhage all over the place. Like you don't have a regular doc. You haven't been there. And I could see the real thought above his head was, "Oh my God, I'm the primary healthcare provider." Which was so crazy. I couldn't believe it wasn't true because like I wouldn't have thought of that. So there he is. He's stuck there. And she kept on saying, "I want to go home." I'm kind of like that snake lady. "I want to go home. I want to go home. I don't want to be here." And he said, "Well, I could check you out. It would be like right here. I'd have to write against doctor's orders. We'll check you out." "No, no, yeah, I want to go home." "No, Susan, you should say." So finally, I don't know if he thought I was her husband or just he was like, "Okay." Then he said, "You and I are prisoners here tonight. You don't want to be here, and I don't want to be here, but we're both stuck until morning." And it was uh, like, yeah, okay. So she stayed, and he got to see her records. So they were like a foot and a half high. She said literally a foot and a half high of computer printouts, all interspersed with green sheets. That's emergency. That's ICU or emergency room. And a couple of years later, when she was with John and she married John, and he had one of his friends who was a cardiologist look at her records, and he Liviu was his name. He was Romanian, and he looked at it, and he saw these green sheets, and he said, "I've never seen anybody who had so many green sheets who was still alive." And and then he said, "Yeah, it's like we'd have to shoot her or something." Oh, I see. Somebody already tried that. She had a bullet wound. Yeah. And so, which is another story too, but from her teenage years. And so that was the mushroom story, and she survived, and she did say it did taste good. Um, but yeah, and then the next day, or was it 2 days later? It was very shortly after. I was in Earth Circles, which is a little Indian craft store run by Gail Wiegand, That's where I first met He Who Must Not Be Named, Tismal Crow. And so I came in and um, Gail said, well, yeah, I was in, I told her the story and she said, yeah, or maybe this came first. Yeah, I was here and these two emergency room nurses from Abbott Northwestern came in here and told that story and they said they weren't on duty. That was their best friend that was on duty. And they said, yeah, and we bought some of that milk thistle because they had that handout. And Gail said, well, yeah, you could lose your license or so if you gave that. And she said, well, we're just keeping our locker. We'd rather lose our license than a patient. Like, whoa. Now, things changed in the 90s, and you can call the FDA and they will approve the use of that herbal supplement um, for that type of mushroom poisoning, which still happens perhaps more. In fact, the head of the mycology group, this is not the University of Minnesota or anything, just a free bunch of people, mycologists of Minnesota, he died from eating that. So I would always, if I'm picking mushrooms, I would have that milk thistle with me. Not that it'll show up immediately, a couple hours. Well, so, um, Kelly, I still have a few more stories. So Amos visited her some and his son, and they were friends, and he came over. And one morning, he wasn't there, but one morning it was breakfast, and she was getting ready to go to work, and she was making breakfast, and Amos's teacher showed up. I think it was Grey Wolf was his name, a Canadian medicine man, and he was at the door there, and she knew he was a Canadian, and he was not. He was that was his double. He was in two places at once. He said, "She is Amos here?" And she said, no. Do you want breakfast?" And he said, "No, I'm just trying to find Amos." So she's one of the two people I've met who has seen a double. The other person was Marilyn Schneider, who we interviewed, John and I, who is a remote viewer, one of her medicine men. It was not actually her teacher, it was a different one who she saw in two places. She saw in one place, and she drove off, and then he was there in another place. Couldn't have gotten there faster than she did. Oh, so many peculiar and amazing experiences. And um, yeah, Big Galen and Little Galen really liked her because I haven't been able to get in touch with them. I don't know. With Little Galen, I'll try during the summer. And because they'd have dreams together too. So, and just, friends on the inner plane. So those are kind of most of the most amazing experiences, not all of them. And those pipe ceremonies for so many years were just really so beautiful. Oh, yeah. And here was one, the last time she spoke before she had a stroke, so elegant. It's not exactly like she channeled the spirits. It's called in the, so running a sweat lodge you have the water carrier, they have the water bringer, they have the right to bring in the water to ask that the water be brought in and poured on the rocks, the water pourer. And they have to have dreamed of a crane. I know one person who dreamed of the crane's bell herb because he was an herbalist. And so that gave you the right to bring in the water. And the crane is the water bird. And then there's the interpreter. The interpreter is someone who is really good at hearing the spirits and saying what they say. And I remember one ceremony where the water pourer said, "Oh, good, so and so's here. He's a good interpreter." So Susan was a very good interpreter. So this is the last time she really spoke elegantly because she later had the stroke. And she said, oh, I don't know, the apocalypse came up. She said, "Oh, it's going to be like Never Again," will Time magazine uh, report declare that God is dead. when this whole season, when all this is over, everybody will see that God was in control all the time. So that was interesting. But then what she was really amazing, if I can remember, she said, there's a turtle graveyard at the bottom of the ocean. It's a mystery. The turtles go there to die. Nobody knows why. It's a mystery. There will be great mysteries revealed as the earth changes. They will penetrate to our bones. If we're not ready, our bones will be shattered. Like, wow. So on that note, I thought I would end. There's still a few stories that remain out there, but not too many. Yeah.
It's wonderful to watch you reminisce and tell these stories.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they have milk thistle injectables. I don't know. Yeah, they may have to actually get it flown out or something. I don't know how it works, Michael. Michael asked a question there about milk thistle, and I don't really know, but those nurses, they had it on hand. So, yes, okay. Thank you, people.
Thanks so much, Matthew.
Yeah.
That was wonderful.
All right. I'm going to sign off, and we will have another amazing evening sometime with Peter. I just am going to interview him sometime, and we'll post that as we did this time. And we may have a little bit, hi, Betsy, we may have a little bit of Angela. Yes, Angela would remember present moment. Angela participated in a few of those crazy stories, and her sister as well. So, and so we'll probably pre-record it, and we'll have something similar. But I think we can probably we may have a better time. I hope that worked out for everybody. Everybody was able to view that. Okay.
Thanks,
Adios,
Matthew.
people. Bye. Yeah.
I'll see you soon. Well, thank you all for being here and for tuning in. Of course, if you have any questions come up, let us know at hello@whatherbs.com, and we'll be more than happy to help you out. And I wish you a great day, morning, or evening, wherever you are. And we'll see you again soon.
Thanks for joining us. If you are interested in learning more, you can visit our website at matthewwoodinstituteofherbalism.com. You can find all of our social links in the description below. Also, please subscribe to our channel so you can keep up with the latest videos.